Have you ever witnessed someone being turned away by the entire world simply because they refuse to cloak themselves in the glittering robes of power? In a place where the brilliance of diamonds conceals rotting hearts, could a simple white linen dress be enough to challenge an empire built on gold and silver? At Port Azure, the most luxurious harbor in the world, where a single nod could determine the fate of an empire, a girl stepped aboard the Silver Majesty, a $350 million super yacht, without a crown, without jewels, armed only with a silent pride that moved like an unseen wave, quietly eroding the proudest fortresses. She had no idea she was about to become the target of scorn, of whispered cruelty, of daggered stares, and humiliating hashtags flooding secret social media circles. But she did not need to know, for her heart never sought validation from those who loved only appearances. In a world where dignity was measured by the carats of a gemstone, Amelia Rowan would prove that sometimes all it takes is an unyielding heart to make the entire ocean bow its head. And the story you are about to witness is not merely about the christening of a yacht. It is about a silent revolution, a triumph so profound it left the world choking on one inevitable question. In the end, where does a person's true worth really lie? If the whole world looked at you as a stain on a silk tapestry, what would you do? In a place where every step echoed the weight of power, where diamonds shone brighter than smiles and reputations outweighed souls, would you have the courage to hold your head high? Port Azure, the most luxurious harbor on the planet, glittered under the Mediterranean sun, rows of yachts gleaming like floating palaces. Along the dock, draped in white velvet, proud silhouettes in Dior haute couture gowns, wrists adorned with Bulgari, and million-dollar Richard Mille watches whispered and laughed, like sea breezes murmuring through the rocks. And then, amidst that river of gilded splendor, a small boat quietly pulled in. A girl stepped ashore, so different it stole the breath from the air. No flowing silk gowns, no blinding diamonds, only a pure white linen dress, soft as a gentle wave, simple leather shoes, and chestnut hair loosely tied over one shoulder like drifting seaweed. Her name was Amelia Rowan. With just one step, all the pride of Port Azure seemed to freeze in place. Eyes, sharp as blades hidden beneath velvet, turned toward her slowly and coldly. The clinking of crystal glasses rang out, followed by a sneering chuckle. Waiter got lost again. A crowned lady, her tiara studded with emeralds, extended an empty champagne glass toward Amelia, as if to emphasize that she did not belong there. And then another voice, colder, sharper, cut through the air. This is Monaco's royal christening, not a beach shack. But Amelia did not lower her head. She walked on, her gaze serene, as if the roaring waves of power had never brushed against her heart. Yet none of them knew, or rather, they had long forgotten, that sometimes even a gentle breeze is enough to sink the proudest warships. And in that moment, a silent question rippled through the crowd. Would that small, fragile girl be swallowed whole, or would she teach this vast ocean a lesson it would never forget? Crowned eyes and million-dollar watches clung to Amelia's every step like velvet cloaked claws, their gazes no longer hiding their contempt, but peeling it back layer by brutal layer. Amid this gilded crowd, a woman's voice, cold as the sea wind, lashed straight at her. Did someone lose the kitchen staff, setting off bursts of laughter like foam shattering against the hull of a ship? Vivian LaCroix, heiress to LaCroix Banking Group, resplendent in a hand-embroidered door gown worth $120,000, tilted her head and whispered mockingly into her companion's ear, a smirk dancing at the corner of her mouth. From the lounge area, Tariq Al-Fayed, crown prince of a wealthy Gulf state, sipped his champagne and shook his head in feigned regret. They really let the cleaners in these days, and the laughter rippled outward like fire caught in the wind. Sabine Astoria, CEO of Astoria Fashion, let her gaze sweep over Amelia, as if inspecting a low-grade item mistakenly placed on a royal auction block. Whispers pelted Amelia like hail. Maybe she's an intern or someone's assistant who sneaked into the gala. And all across Port Azure, Phones flashing Vertu and Goldfish logos lit up, recording the scene. Hashtags Port Azure and #WrongGuest exploded across the elite's private social networks, and venomous comments flooded in like an unseen tide, each word a dagger aimed at the back of the girl in the simple linen dress. Yet Amelia kept walking, her head unbowed, her eyes unwavering, her posture calm, as if no sneering finger could ever pierce her soul. Amid the storm of laughter, stares, and gold-plated curses, Amelia simply tightened the linen sash around her waist. A small gesture, but one so powerful it seemed to shake the very ground beneath her feet, as if the world could collapse around her, but she herself would not fall. And in that moment, a quiet fury began to simmer in the hearts of those watching her through live-stream screens, hearts still capable of being moved by the unyielding pride of a human being daring to stand tall amid this ocean of hollow splendor. If the mocking words from the guests were merely the first crashing waves, then the complicity of Port Azure's own service staff was the true merciless tide. Those clad in pristine white uniforms, adorned with pearl pins and badges from luxury service brands, symbols that should have stood for hospitality and professionalism, now bowed, smirked, and cast sideways glances drenched in contempt. As Amelia approached the lounge area, a port manager with a commanding presence strode over, his gaze sweeping down from his lofty height to her linen dress as if scanning a stain. His lips curled into a thin, cold smile, and his voice dripped with honeyed malice. "Staff quarters are in the back, miss. This area is reserved for honored guests." Behind him, a few service staff covered their mouths, giggling, their eyes poorly masking their pity. From a distance, a senior hostess straightened the silver tray in her hands and approached with an air of false politeness, whispering just loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. "Minimum dress code requires couture. We don't accept market linen," triggering open laughter among bystanders. The air thickened with humiliation. And when Amelia remained unmoved, when she neither flinched nor bowed her head, another staff member, uniform gleaming under the sun, stepped right up to her, deliberately dropped a white napkin at her feet, and sneered. "Miss, be a dear and pick that up for us, would you?" As if she were nothing more than a stray waitress who had wandered into a kingdom of thrones. Around them, laughter caught in throats, hidden cameras flashed to capture every second, and #WrongStaff and #MarinaMistake erupted across the elite's secret networks. Images of Amelia's simple linen dress were blown up and circulated, cruel comments flooding in like a toxic tide, each word a dagger stabbing at the dignity of the young woman. Yet Amelia kept walking, her eyes as serene as a still sea before a coming storm. Every step she took seemed to carve a new path, a path that defied the rotten standards of this glittering world. And amid the shallow, decadent swamp, Amelia's dignity shone bright and solitary, like a lighthouse standing defiantly against the raging waves. Meanwhile, millions watching through live streams clenched their fists, their hearts swelling with outrage, rising into a silent storm of fury for a girl who dared to walk tall through a hailstorm of gilded, poisoned stares. When the whispers had grown into roaring waves and disdainful glances had sharpened into open blades, the cruelty of the crowd knew no bounds. All across Port Azure, diamond-studded phones continued flashing relentlessly, capturing close-up shots and videos of Amelia's linen dress, each one magnified with vicious captions. "Loss made at the Royal Gala," "Fishing net dress alert," while hashtags like #MarinaMistake and #PortShame flooded the secret networks of the elite. In the glittering shadows, news stories were spun about a young girl in a market dress who had stumbled into a high-society event, surely a thief, or worse, a fraud. A man in a Tom Ford tuxedo laughed loudly and mocked. She probably snuck in from a cargo ship, dreaming of a new life, while a woman draped in a $300,000 Ellie Saab gown delivered a cold verdict. Her mother was probably a floor scrubber at the docks. Laughter broke out like waves crashing against the rocks, and the fabrications spread faster than lightning. A Swiss banker muttered to his friend, "She must have faked her invitation. Someone should check the guest list immediately. And as if all that wasn't enough, from the upper deck of a yacht, a Gulf royal heiress showered jasmine petals down onto Amelia, her voice sweet yet dripping with malice. For the poor little maid lost at sea, it was no longer a gathering. It had become a hunt, where the prey was surrounded by fake smiles and daggered stares. Yet Amelia kept walking, her linen dress fluttering gently in the sea breeze, her loosely tied chestnut hair dancing in the air. Every step she took led her deeper into a labyrinth woven from scorn and cruelty. Each slanderous word, each sideways glance, each cruel laugh was an arrow aimed at the very heart of her dignity. And far away, millions watching through live streams clenched their fists, their hearts igniting with fury. Fury for a human being who dared to walk upright through a storm of rotting words and poisoned stares. Amelia did not bow, nor did she turn back. She moved forward in silence, walking straight through the waves of humiliation. And it was that very silence, that proud refusal to respond, that made the wealthy crowd's rage boil over even more violently. For nothing wounds the arrogant more deeply than the calm gaze of someone they cannot break, a silent defiance cutting against the grain of all the cruelty hurled upon her. When the cruel whispers and hateful stares had woven a colossal web of vanity around Amelia, when vile rumors and razor-sharp laughter had escalated beyond control, it was precisely then that the loudspeakers crackled to life, clear and piercing, like silver bells slicing through the oppressive air covering Port Azure. The crowd, roaring with laughter only moments before, froze mid-motion. Champagne glasses hovered awkwardly in the air. The MC's voice rang out, slow but cutting, each word a blade slashing through the pride of the arrogant. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's distinguished guest of honor, the one who will christen the Silver Majesty, Dr. Amelia Rowan, globally acclaimed oceanographer and sole heir to Rowan Oceanic Holdings. In that instant, the entire harbor of Port Azure turned to stone. The fake smiles melted faster than foam on broken waves. Those who had once scorned her now stared with eyes wide in shock. Vivian LaCroix turned pale as marble, the champagne flute slipping from her fingers and shattering on the precious wooden deck. Tariq Al-Fayed stood frozen, his throat too dry to form words. Sabine Astoria collapsed into her seat, her $100,000 Elie Saab gown unable to conceal the rising tide of horror and shame washing over her blanched face. In distant corners, the expensive phones that had been gleefully recording every moment now slowly lowered, trembling in the once proud hands that held them. And far beyond, millions watching the live stream burst into tears, overwhelmed by an unstoppable wave of emotion. Amelia stood there still, slender and serene in her simple white linen dress, bathed in the golden Mediterranean sunlight, her loosely tied chestnut hair catching the breeze like a soft halo. She wore no crown, no elaborate robe, yet the entire space seemed to bow before her quiet majesty and unmatched fortitude. Step by step, Amelia made her way toward the ceremonial bridge. Her slender hand gripped the golden-wrapped champagne bottle tightly, every footfall echoing a silent declaration of dignity and pride. Her gaze was steady, not a trace of bitterness, not a flicker of arrogance, only the deep serenity of someone who knew exactly what she stood for. When Amelia reached the bow of the Silver Majesty, the entire harbor held its breath, all eyes fixed upon her. Every silver sail behind her seemed to lower in silent reverence. And then, in that moment, she raised the bottle high and shattered it against the hull, the crisp crack resounding like a blazing proclamation amid the hollow splendor. White foam burst forth, washing away all arrogance. Amelia lifted her chin, and her clear, resonant voice carried across the stunned sea of faces. In the name of the eternal ocean, I bless this ship as Silver Majesty. The sea breeze caught her linen dress, letting it unfurl like a proud white banner. And in that moment, every soul who had mocked, belittled, and ridiculed Amelia realized a chilling truth. It was they who were unworthy to even set foot on this silver-bowed vessel. And Amelia, with her humble dress and unbreakable heart, was the one who had made the entire ocean bow. Before the foam of the shattered champagne could even settle, while Port Azure still held its breath in the aftermath of the unexpected christening, the deep, rumbling sound of helicopter blades tore through the sky. All heads snapped toward the sleek black helicopter descending onto the private landing pad, reserved for private island owners. The door swung open, and the man known as the legend of the ocean, Aiden Rowan, stepped out. He wore a hand-tailored navy blue suit, devoid of any flashy jewels, his towering figure carved by years of ocean winds, his steel-gray eyes sweeping across the crowd, each glance a scalpel slicing through the layers of trembling vanity beneath million-dollar dresses and suits. He needed no microphone, no grand speech. With a voice deep and resonant with absolute authority, he spoke, each word striking the marble floor like a hammer nailing down the rotted pride of the elite. 40 years ago, I built Rowan Oceanic from a rotten fishing boat and an unshakable belief. I once thought that fame, fortune, and crowns could walk hand in hand with loyalty and dignity. Today, you have shown me how wrong I was. The crowd froze, the faces once hidden behind courteous smiles now drained pale with raw fear. Aiden slowly turned to Amelia, his gaze softened, filled with profound pride and unwavering trust. Then he turned back to those who had humiliated her. With a steady hand, he raised a tablet, and with a single swipe, a series of billion-dollar contracts lit up the screen and were instantly terminated. Each name flashed clear, each contract obliterated before the horrified eyes of the crowd. Vivian LaCroix, stripped of all international banking relations with Rowan Oceanic. Tariq Al-Fayed is losing exclusive shipping routes across international waters. Sabine Astoria, the Astoria fashion brand blacklisted from all Rowan-affiliated events. Each contract termination fell like thunderbolts, smashing down the once untouchable elite. Vivian staggered, her once proud face twisted in despair. Tariq Al-Fayed clenched his fists, grinding his teeth and eyes, darting for salvation that no longer existed. Sabine Astoria trembled, her Chanel bag slipping from her hand, hitting the wooden floor with a dry, hollow thud like the sound of a collapsing dynasty. Aiden Rowan lifted his head to survey the silent Port Azure, his voice dropping low yet crashing down like thousands of tons of seawater. The crowns you wear, the jewels you flaunt, cannot hide the hollow, filthy smallness of your hearts. Honor is not something you can buy. And today, you have sold your souls for the cheap thrill of mocking a pure heart. Then he turned to Amelia and extended his hand. And in that moment, as father and daughter clasped hands under the radiant Port Azure sun, the world seemed to hold its breath. Justice was fully restored. A new empire was being forged atop the ashes of those who believe they could trample others with vanity and arrogance. Amelia lifted her head high, her gaze ablaze with pride, her white linen dress fluttering like a triumphant banner in the sea breeze. And across every harbor, across millions of live-stream screens, cheers erupted and proud tears flowed, for everyone knew that today, justice had needed no sword, no throne, only the upright stance of a heart that would never bow. When Aiden Rowan clasped Amelia's hand before all of Port Azure, it was as if a death sentence had been pronounced in broad daylight, and the collapse began faster than any storm ever to sweep these seas. In just a few short minutes, empires that once stood like proud fortresses crumbled mercilessly into dust. Vivian LaCroix, once proud of her vast international banking network, saw her financial partners sever ties at breakneck speed. Cold rejection emails, curt phone calls, and notifications of frozen accounts rained down like a hailstorm. Her face turned ghostly pale, her flawless makeup unable to mask the terror in her eyes. Her trembling hands fumbled for her Vertu phone, only to find message after message from her board demanding her resignation as chairwoman. Tariq Al-Fayed, the crown prince who once lounged arrogantly in crocodile leather armchairs, now stood lost and broken as billion-dollar shipping deals across the Gulf evaporated instantly. Email after email from oil conglomerates cut him off without hesitation. Contracts he once believed untouchable washed away like sandcastles swallowed by the tide. Tarek's eyes glazed over, his hands hanging limp at his sides, his once flushed, self-satisfied face now bleached with despair. Meanwhile, Sabina Astoria, the once reigning queen of haute couture, collapsed beside her Chanel bag, lying forlorn on the wooden deck. Fashion networks simultaneously wiped her brand's presence. Celebrities who once wore Astoria gowns issued public boycotts, and flagship stores shuttered one after another. The hashtag #AstoriaFall trended globally within an hour, dealing a final, devastating blow to her luxurious dreams. All around them, the figures who had once sneered and mocked Amelia now cowered, retreating into the shadows. No gilded crown, no diamond-studded watch, no six-figure suit could save them from the searing humiliation that now ripped through their flesh. Port Azure, which just hours earlier had stood as a monument to power and pride, had transformed into a battlefield of shattered souls. Tears welled up in once proud eyes, choked sobs broke the heavy air, and desperate, belated whispers of apology floated among the ruins of arrogance. But Amelia, clad in her simple linen dress, remained standing, not needing a crown, not needing a throne, armed only with dignity and unshakable resolve. Her calm gaze swept across the crowd, now rotting in the wreckage of their own pride. And across millions of live-stream screens, tears streamed freely, for in that moment, they were not merely witnessing a girl's victory. They were witnessing the birth of an immortal symbol of dignity and justice. While Port Azure lay in chaotic ruin, as crowns toppled and decayed empires were laid bare, Amelia Rowan, in her simple white linen dress and with her proud, unyielding gaze, quietly descended the marble dock. Each step she took left a mark not with the weight of status or wealth, but with the gravity of dignity and unwavering will. Beside her, Aiden Rowan walked with calm, measured strides, while the black helicopter awaited them on the landing pad like a gateway to a new era. The port staff, those who had scorned her mere hours ago, now stood solemn and silent, heads bowed, not a word dared spoken. The phones that had once secretly captured her humiliation now lay forgotten, for no camera could capture the majesty of a soul that had triumphed over the most dazzling ocean of vanity. Amelia never looked back. She had no need. What she left behind was not ashes of regret, but a lesson carved deep into the hearts of those who had once mocked her. That honor, when guarded fiercely with the heart, would outlast any throne, any diamond, any false crown. A small boat bobbed gently in the deep blue water, waiting. Amelia stepped aboard, her linen dress fluttering softly in the breeze, her chestnut hair tousled lightly by the wind, her face serene like the sea after a storm. As the boat pulled away, drifting from the silver majesty, from Port Azure, from everything that had tried and failed to break her, the entire harbor, from marble halls to million-dollar cabins, lowered their heads in silence. Eyes reddened with tears, choked apologies whispered into the heavy air, sobs of regret echoed across the global live stream. The hashtags #OceanQueen and #AmeliaTriumph exploded across the world as millions watched the small boat drift away like a beacon for souls lost in the sea of heartless gold and silver. And when Amelia lifted her head to gaze straight toward the horizon, where the ocean and sky met in endless blue, in that fleeting moment, everyone understood. She needed no throne, no crown, no adoration of millions, because the boundless ocean itself and the vast, endless sky had already bowed in silent reverence to a heart that would never yield. There are victories that need no applause and crowns that need no gilding, because the true worth of a person is not measured by what they wear, but by how they uphold their dignity in a world that constantly tries to judge and price you by appearances. The story of Amelia Rowan teaches us a clear and profound lesson. In an ocean glittering with the false light of gold and fame, Only an unyielding heart truly shines and makes the world bow in reverence. The message I want to leave with you is simple yet powerful. You don't need to be the richest. You don't need to be the most famous. Holding on to your integrity is already a victory. And sometimes, walking forward in silence, head held high through mockery and scorn, is the strongest answer of all. Personally, I believe that within each of us lies a part of Amelia, a part of quiet yet unbreakable resilience. And I hope that this story has sparked a flame within you, reminding you that even when the world turns its back, your dignity remains the brightest crown that no one can ever take away. If you felt something stir within you through Amelia's journey, if your heart has ever been wounded by judgmental eyes, but you still chose to walk forward with pride, I invite you to share your feelings in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it to spread this strength to others, and most importantly, subscribe to Toch Story so you never miss the stories that touch the heart, awaken belief, and ignite the courage within us all.